Hello, everyone. Good day, and welcome to Role Play Cafe. I'm Dale. I thought I'd get on here for a moment and I thought it was important at least to give my GM reflection recap and on last night's Symbaroum session, which I ran for David and Jason. Well, I think it's specifically in the Robin GM situation. So far as the three of us, I don't know if Todd or Justin may get a chance to come back, to the fold or whatnot. But nevertheless, it's important that, when you instigate something in the world that and it's a shared communal world and events that are happening, there has to be some kind of clarification or intent. Even though, I left everything, be careful, try to leave everything a little ambiguous to be interpreted by the next GM who might want to draw a line or connect the dot to something that I had, instigated in the world. I know, Jason started us off. David did the second one, and there was a sense that in David's game that there was more to come along those lines. Something was happening in that area, that could unfold. When I do something like that, I like to be able to, lay it out and like a baton, give it to the other guys if they want to pick it up and run with it in any direction that they choose. So my little recap, I know Jason's did an excellent recap of his own, but I'll kind of pinpoint of what I had in mind at different areas, what may have been going on in the background, me conceptually, and like I said, I'll leave it ambiguous to go off in different directions. But and as Jason said at the start of it, I gave him a chance to talk to Rigel because he had a chip on his shoulder from the last session we did with David. The David ran. Felt like we had been set up, marked for failure and whatnot, right? So it started that David Malleus talked, his character talked him down a little bit, cooled his anger before they met me, gave him a chance to do that or met Rigel, right? But Rigel, the way I perceive him, even though he was introduced by Jason at the start, is very much a business goblin. If you don't do the job for it, that's how he reached the heights that he has. He doesn't bend all that well. In fact, I had that scene from Scarface in my mind whenever after Pacino and his cohorts did the little job for and then they were approached again, and he in the back washing dishes, and he comes out and he really throws the gauntlet down. It says, we want something big, and that's the way I felt like that chip on the shoulder that Jason's character Tara had toward Rigel. So there was going to be a tense moment. He got cooled off a little bit, but still it was going to give an opening to offer something big. You really want to roll with the big dogs, So that was the opening. Rigel needed to hand them a little bit more of a job that would give them more reputation and maybe lead them to handle more than just excursions into ruins or whatnot like that. Something more that had to do with more political, or maybe world triggering events or whatnot. Touchstones for that. So that was introduced to them. They had to, and they still don't know exactly. They were told who exactly got Rigel to offer the best. And it's really not none of their business according to Rigel. He offers this. If you want it, do it and keep your mouth shut. But this priest needs to be brought back here to account for his heresies within his church. That's all they were told, right? Now that's kind of sketchy. Is it the true church? And who knows? Who knows? That's for later. That could be sussed out later on if anybody wants to take it in a certain direction, for one. But it could be very well the truth, right? So they head off. They get there. they have to have the priest taken for some reason before the summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year, right? Well, going through the camp, and I'd purchased a book called Kidnap the Archpriest several years ago, and it'd been sitting on my shelf for a while. And I thought, why I picked it up, I was like, it changed the pace. It's a heist, systemless, settingless heist module by Skirples. All right, so it has a cadre of people that are either, the surrounding community that might have access to the workings of the fortification, the abbey that was there in the module is kind of based on maybe the High Middle Ages, but there is definitely a place where they abide at, and then there's a throughway to the main cathedral, and you could have done maybe in a course between from the cathedral to the abbey, or either get the abbey some way. A lot of it was represented in the game if you watch it, because they did, where I did change names to mean it to more of a Symbaroum name convention. Some of the characters, a lot of them, I kept to their descriptions as far as the personalities and their intent within the module. So as far as that area, the temple, the shrine, the setting sun, and the pilgrim tent encampment that is on the mesa of Kosovar, I believe it's called, right? That they had to get to. It took them 5 days to get up there, and it's a plateau risen above the Davakar. It's not so claustrophobic or it's a break from it. Now the barbarians there historically have been there for 100 plus years, using the place as a means of gathering for all the barbarian tribes. And the witches are there. Not so long ago, missionaries went there and found the ruins of the Sun Temple. We had the iconography of Prios on there, which is their god. They tried to take it by force. It did not work out that well. According to the lore of the land, they were both, they met an agreement. It came to loggerheads with the Wrathguard and the Sun Templars. There was no really, they're basically the same streetwise representative on the Prios side and then the barbarian side. So it was locked down like that, but they were allowed to rebuild the temple and maintain it there, and pilgrims can come up and merchants can come up and trade. It's been beneficial for both sides. Plus, they didn't want to have Prius at the back and then the Davakar attacking too, so you don't want to be in the middle of that. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend, as they say. So that's where they're steady, but it's always a very tense situation because there's hatred amongst the two, and they kind of keep to their own selves. They endure each other, as it were. Now, my concept of how I would adapt this module to the place was put this as the Temple of the Setting Sun, retain all of the characters there as in the module, as per their personality types. I said at one point when the guys went in there to speak to a priest, I had them roll a d6, and they actually rolled the priest that was more inclined to advance. And he was second under there. So if he could advance his position and take over and be over that temple solidly, he would do it. And they met the right guy on that, and they were able to leverage it to their benefit in getting access to his sleeping quarters. But the whole situation there, the temple, I had replaced the cathedral with maybe a clearing. It's clearing, it led out into a stone circular flat area where the congregations would gather. There in the middle there was a statue of Prios where the sun would hit it, and it would be like a sundial, right? That the shadow would go along and hit the areas around the around a circular area like a clock, because it's important when you have the guys out, and we only have so much time. And this was a long session. When we're round robining DMs and we got to pass on to the next DM, I needed it to be wrapped up. So you put a ticker on the time clock. Not only that, but I used the bells to chime off to let them know that time was going. They had a deadline to accomplish this because something was going down on the solstice. Well, I mean, the heresy, as it were, I implemented with, I thought about having the solstice there and gathering of Prios, the sun god, on that day. But for some reason, the archpriest, in all of these, whether you're, the Magi Ordica, I believe is the mages, right? So they're very scientific in how they approach things. But there was a mage that had come and was talking to the archpriest, and they had found there's 3 days ride to the other side, another ruin with those markings on it, right? And brought it back. But he had somehow got into the head of the archpriest and showed him some evidence. It swayed his faith in a certain way, but it also showed that it had been like ages since this confluence of planets would line out, to where, and I'm only telling you what Malleus and Toro would understand from all these charts that they had picked up on their trek back, and whether they want to give them away or keep them. But this is what they learned. And all of his scribblings and writings down, this is what he had picked up, that for the longest time ever, right on the same day the solstice, the night before, was going to be a blood moon. And the documents that he had written down that I read to the guys at the end of it, I read it now. It says, when the night and the day are without meaning, where darkness shimmers and light gathers in shadows. Okay. There stands the throne again. Shall carry mistress of the regent, a peer of the divine. All right. Now this can be kind of confusing however you want to take it, but where the day and the night are kind of not either one, So that's where, in effect, whenever it was running the game, the night was so brilliantly red, full moon, very, very lit. This would also make it harder to sneak around, as it were, use the shadows. But it was red and red, and I had the mist roll in. I didn't see that, but I kind of did it on, at the moment, whenever the blood moon rose. And the blood moon coincided with the Wrath Guard and the whole aspect of it. I mean, the Prios, earlier Prios had given, the day before this, a sermon about cultivating the land, which is opposed to chaos, like the chaos of the wilderness that was growing. They wanted to establish outposts in Dagobah to push the darkness back, to push chaos back, to cultivate the land. That's part of their theology, right? So that was what that tree represented that broke up, and I told the guys had wound its way up almost like a willow around, or birch around the statue of Prios, and that had bloomed forth. It was still a young tree because it's only been 2 years since they established that, but it was showed evidence, of that area being not corrupted. And at that specific area, that was right. Well, whenever they tried to go out that night, and after they met with the priest, and they were trying to get there to get their disguises and ascend the wall to get the priest, the mist was rolling in. They had been seen by one of the Sun Paladin Guard. He gets hit. When I said locust swarm, I was trying to describe it, but it's actually, I didn't want to say that at that time because the description, but it's Edomite, right? And when they'd flown over, and I said afterwards that they had flown past the building. Well, the guys that climbed up, they're in acoustic shadow. They couldn't hear that the buzzing, the swarm. These Edomites as long as your forearm, right? A swarm of them. But they had headed over there and was attacking that tree. So when the guys were leaving, and I said, you notice that the paladins they're trying to fight these Edomites off, and they're swarming this tree. Well, that was obviously in the mist was representative of corruption. And Jason was right, pointing out that I didn't do the corruption thing because that aspect was the corruption effect that I was rolling on a chart for 9. He was having hallucinations. David passed, but he failed, so he had that. So he should have suffered a temporary corruption on that. My bad, but that's the way it is. But that was definitely corruption rolling in, that mist rolling in, and everything had a red tint to it. But you got to realize there's a contingent of 25, around 25 Prios Knights, Paladins, but there's like 120 of the Wrath Guard in there. But when they came down after abducting the priest and they saw the slaughter that was going on, there was not, just pointing out, there was not 120 Wrath Guard. And even when I said that they were about to leave, the lights in the hall were coming on and more Wrath Guard were coming out. Now that's left up to any pending DM to see what was going on there. And I tried to illustrate that there was another reason that there was redness being seen in the troll, as well as some of these Wrath Guards. But it was also so you can conclude as a GM that maybe this Davokar corruption mist had rolled in, and it's very, like I said, this is a powder keg, this plateau, Kosovar. There's a lot that could ignite some feelings of some extremities, especially if the corruptions are there and making you act off, of what you were told otherwise to do, whether you're Wrath Guard or whether you're, from Prius. So that probably had an effect in it. There's another aspect that I won't go into right now. Another thing I should say is where the Ettercap came from was, when they saw them coming in, there's a forest south of, or I say south, but it's east of there. When I said that there was, and you can see it on the map, and there is, according to the lore, there's a creature that already lives in there. Okay, you can assume what you want, but whenever the Ettercap came out of that area, was leaving that area toward the guys before it hit the Paladin and went on the other side of the Sun Temple, there could be something going on there. Whenever they left, they see this massacre that's occurring by a certain number of Wrath Guard. And the troll itself was coming from the direction of the witch's cave. There's a series of caves down there where the witches are held up. That's exactly from the direction that it was coming from. So it just didn't appear out of nowhere. All right. So that was purposeful in that. There was a sense of madness and whatnot was going on. Whenever they did manage to get out and get far away enough to start their descent down the mountain. And I illustrated when they turned around and what they were seeing. It was a brush fire going on. The mist was still there. Chaos. Most of the pilgrims, if not all, have been dispatched. Probably, assumably, there could be escapees or what have you. But at that point in time, whenever they descended it and got the heck out of Dodge, or this case, Kosovar. Okay, so all of that was going on, there was some aspect they did take when they abducted the archpriest. They abducted it. They got his astrological charts that he'd been looking at, which is somewhat, I guess, considered blasphemous for him to be going down that road of inquiry to find out what was going on. But it showed truth to him. That's what he was worried about. That's why he was so paranoid to set the guards on himself so much. Something was going down, and he had obviously let loose lips and confided in some of his priesthood, which one of them being the man that Malleus and Taro had spoke with that garnered them entrance to the temple in a way to abduct. Yeah, they will see his scribbled writings. Like I said, they also see that aspects from the temple, the written thing that I just read a moment ago, which is the prophecy of Sarkamal, and which says that the day would be like the night and night like the day, right? So whenever they descended and the sun started to break, the clouds moved in, it would have been dense, dark cloud cover, right? Which issued toward rain, right? So the rain's definite. Who knows what happened on that plateau? Who knows if the sun broke through at any point in time during that day? If the sway of battle, how long the madness happened, if the tide turned toward the Prios and they were able to defend the area, or if the madness swelled on the side of the Wrathguard and they were overpowered, or if it died off, that's totally left up to anybody who would want to pick up that if they wanted to go back into that area and explore that regions, or have some kind of butterfly effect come out and word come down to the settlement of Blackmore or whatnot about what had happened during that. But it's a very razor's edge, like I said, powder keg there already, much less something happening, was there, like the witches and resurrection of Davokar that is starting to happen? Was it just him as the priest and as the people in the settlement were dreaming and screaming? Is this an effect of Davokar awakening from his slumber? When it was able to overtake the plateau to some degree and affect it. Is it with the moon concerned? The blood moon, this conjunction of blood moon with during the summer solstice is there. So there's questions that can be kind of delved into and find out if any of that has any bearing. It's just a one shot, or is it on to something further to where it's a resurrection or reawakening of Davokar. It may tangentially tie into what David was doing before. So that's what I wanted to implement and get into the system, into the world setting. And I think it would be nice to have the other GMs pick up and go for whatever direction. But everything that happens, if there's a trigger on a world build level that affects and may affect or could affect something else, that's great. Movers and shakers, as they say. So I really enjoyed the session. I was glad the guys were able to sit there for 4 hours. Really a lengthy session. We're used to 2.5. And I was a little bit, anybody has to be hesitant, at least, like I said, whenever you're doing a high situation, I was glad to see that the guys said that it felt like they ran into a brick wall or didn't have opportunities to explore, which the module's full of avenues to take, and they took the best avenue that they could take for their their personalities or their classes, as it were, the player characters they were using. So it is a dangerous world. It is a dangerous world, and they escaped amongst the chaos. I know Jason said he got his character knocked down to. He did. It was one whack, and it was rough. But luckily they had the fortitude of mind to say, let's go toward here and see if this is our last ditch effort to see if we can run between the troll and this Wrathguard to get them off of us. And it did happen to work. So I'm glad that they see, by a hair's breadth that they made it out of there alive. I really didn't know what was going to happen. And I'm thankful that the time that we had was able to wrap everything up solidly. And, and then I can pass it on to the next GM who can pick up the tail from there, with the characters, and I can drop back into Shig's greasy feet, greasy sandals, and hit the trail again. but it was enjoyable, and appreciate Dave and Jason for joining me on it and letting me pick up the gauntlet. And the GM thing. It's a very interesting world, and it needs to be explored. And that's what I was wanting to do. Is see in and how and what ways we can explore this differently. And I believe that's what I was trying to do, mix it up a little bit, and it successfully worked within one session, which that's great. That's great. I'm pleased that happened. Well, all right, guys. Anyway, you have a great day, and peace out. Okay, we'll see you on the flip side.